Come on! We're talking stunts, we're talking costumes, all that good stuff. Saw Spider-Man this week, saw it again. That's what it's all about. Costumes and stunts, they're related because obviously stunts, and when you have these, elements of motion and these rigs, spreader bars up top, pick points at the hips, at the feet, whatnot, with these things that dangle and move and are kind of attached to this onesie fabric, this race suit fabric. You got to have a plan there. But we'll save the stunt stuff. But let's talk about the costume. And specifically, this is like a great example of context loading and using the models to, it's very measurable. So, like, I have these suits and, taking measurements. I have a 3D printer. 3D printer can print, a variety of different types of results. Mostly what I'm dealing with is PLA, which is just kind of typical what you'd expect, hard plastic, and TPU, which has more of a give to it. It's more flexible. I got an example over there. I'll grab it. Let's show you real quick. Okay, so this is an example of PLA. You have just a very the supports are still on it, but ASMR, classic plastic, and then you have the 3D printers capable of printing stuff like this, which is more, it's got a give to it, and whatnot. So it's kind of what dealing with, and you do things like, my thinking is, obviously, costume design is, what do I know about it? In terms of making things that look good. I think for the Future Vision XPRIZE's competition submission of trailer sizzle, I'm constantly thinking of, okay, what are the limitations of just the setup, and one being that, you know we're doing this, but it's as best as I can. So where do you start for a jetpacking? These are, guys that are proficient. They got jetpacks. They got sights that they can grapple with, and they're really in the broader story screenplay. These are people who compete in this Neolax, which is a event where you basically have, they're flying around, they're hacking at each other a little bit. It's a physical thing. They can, two teams competing, they can disrupt any part of their get up, their jetpack otherwise, and they need to be able to actually quickly assemble it, even fabricate something, and make changes. You actually have a dedicated position for that. That's kind of like the engineering role. Think of like a hockey penalty box, but they're just like in there, like making, handing out like things that are broken, or going about making modifications and whatnot. So yeah, in terms of the costume design, though, it's shot on a green screen, so you can't have any green on the costume, right? First and foremost, you got to think of things like reflection. You can't have, colors. These are all these plastic pieces, but we're not exactly, you can't really have high reflectivity with the green screen background, because you're lighting this. This is real lighting. It's gonna bounce off the green with the light, and then when you go to key that in post, obviously the green is going to be on this, and then you go to remove it, and it is, you remove the background, that is all this, and you're gonna lose some of your subject. So there's things to keep in mind. A lot of this is, hey, we started with this one, with I went on marketplace and got all these, race suits, and then from those race suits, because they kind of look onesie, they kind of look like athletic, they kind of look engineering. So those are kind of the templates for the purposes of this shoot, I have costume designs and whatnot that um, from renderings and concept art for the full vision, but it's really tough to I don't know where to even start with that. Uh, even with the printer and the resources and whatnot that I have, it's that's like a full you got to be in it and a little too granular for me to do well, and you got to know when to delegate. So I'm working. My sister is helping me because she's really good with a lot of this and has known how to sew forever and whatnot. So she's been a massive help. Her name's Lauren, and so we're putting these suits together basically with the idea of okay, it's combative. They're going around. They need shoulder pads. A big kind of inspiration, besides like tools and whatnot to do repairs and kind of like an engineering mechanic capacity is a straight like athletic capacity in terms of it's very physical. So dirt bike gear and you know is a big influence in terms of they got to be able to take hits. You got to think that they're scuffed up because they've fell down, and it's got to live or feel really lived in um, and just like weathered. All of these pads and whatnot, all these plastic components. So okay, so you have a main fabric, and then you have these elements, throughout of plastic that's prevalent on elbows, shoulders, knees, boots, and little accents of buttons and whatnot. But then, which looks good right there. And then the last little push, over is like, how can you just add more layers instead of just like boom, fabric, boom, all this other type like hardened material. So instead of kind of two layers, two dimensions, getting little like accessories and stuff to really or different fabrics, introducing that, sewing it on different spots and try to layer it a little bit more in terms of just making it believable and just look better, look cooler. So that's kind of been the attitude, the approach with the costume design. And yeah, there's limitations naturally, but it's a interesting problem to solve. Now, in terms of actually tracking this and being diligent, right? So obviously, I have a lot of STL files that I'm printing off and just have the printer going around the clock for new pieces and just options. What's really cool about the models capabilities are that you can with just reference images at this point, and this hasn't always been the case, but you can plug that in and you can essentially have a a recreation of that 3D asset from a 2D image reference image to build the STLs. So staying organized, it's like all right, we have all these STLs from concept art. Okay, then so you kind of approach it two ways, right? You have the end result of like that concept art and the screenplay and the script and everything is going toward that's the North Star, and then you have um, right. We'll do it this way. You have that, and then you have the actual submission for the trailer. So you start on one end is okay. Hey, take all the concept art, take the and whatnot, and build assets accordingly. Build the STL files. Okay, and then we'll make the suit from there. And then on the other hand, it's like okay, we have these materials with these dimensions. Simple prompt like our approach was hey, here are names for each of the four suits, and essentially give us the measurements that you need in order to, make proper sizing and whatnot for these pieces, and kind of start it. Hey, this is fabric. What's gonna look good, and starting from scratch, almost like hand doing it, because a lot of the concept art, some of it was totally by hand, some of it was just the Wabbit approach of just generating a whole bunch on a time scale of months and over a year at a certain cadence, and then I come in and just parse through with a 1 through 10 score of how I like certain parts or highlight that I like certain elements of different things. But it all came from one decision of hey, this is the general prompt, the general vibe, and then it learns on what's doing well and learns what's not doing well in terms of my feedback. So it's just pulling me. So that's the Wabbit approach and how that's integrated. So yeah, so you have that as well, going through things, and as well as just hand drawn stuff as kind of like inspiration is struck, but a lot of it's that generative process. But then starting at this end again, it is like, okay, let's just draw things with the backdrop of these specific starting points rather than the generative approach of like, hey, this is the vision, and going about it that way and making edits. So you have these two kind of approaches, and trying to find middle ground of everything, and having, I mean, you should see it, have all these plastic pieces, all this random belts and notches and zipper components, details, gloves, two sets of dirt bike equipment, riding equipment. You got ropes, you got calipers, got all the things like utility kind of pouches. What am I missing? Little tools like flashlights and this and that. Holsters for those things, random sci-fi designs. So taking all of that, it's all just laid out on the floor, and we're not following exactly one approach of a North Star in terms of these, because it's so grassroots. It's so, hey, let's just make it happen, that it's going to be composited together as it's being finalized here. It's moving this stuff around. Okay, have the 4 suits. This will look better over here. Okay, maybe if we did this, documenting the whole thing, STLs the whole way, the concept art, and you can get these skill files in place to where you get the general vibe from even the plastic components are being, it's coming from you, and handwritten designs yourself. Like something like this, right, has pretty intricate detail throughout, right? It has detail. You can see these grooves, this notch right here. It's almost like a switch. These bolts, and on the other side, some other stuff, and these just started as lines, like literally canvas and drawing like one lines, because in threes it could look cool on a shoulder, it could look cool on a thigh. So taking that and then having the ability for it to a skill file from your concept art to transfer over and be like, hey, here's are some sci-fi designs there. So the mesh approach has been pretty cool for the process, because there's a lot of these components that are pretty neat and unique. So it's putting everything together. It's having scrupulous documentation. Can check out. I can show you the some things like this. So taking a look over here. So yeah, taking a look at this, you can see, we have the suits have just an inventory list going down all the different stuff, dimensions, measurements of the suit. All of this is context, and the model loves this stuff, right? Um, and whatnot. Measure to print, kind of the process. So fun stuff, interesting. Documentation is so important. Documentation is so important. In terms of having the context here and having it loaded. And when you're in a CLI, like I am in this whole process, even I don't know if I've talked about it, but even the video editing process, it's not me in a timeline. I'm in the terminal, most of the time, unless I need to create, external documentation for parts of the crew and whatnot, and on a need to know basis, then I'm sending even the draft emails and stuff, I'm saying, it's a Gmail connection and whatnot, and it's generating certain assets for that distribution, for that communication. But I'm not really anywhere else but my terminal, but my IDE, just juggling, 4 to 12 terminals at a time, just making sure something's always going, documentation is in place, the proper, thinking through things, strategy docs in terms of order of operations, which kind of talked about before, excuse me, and whatnot. So it's a huge piece, and staying organized. There's a lot of moving pieces. This, especially the live shoot, ton of moving pieces. So the communication and staying uh, in a place where it's super important. I talk about it on the channel, all the time. The benefits of downloading an anti-gravity or a cursor, or just in a ChatGPT or Claude app, working in the code section is so important. Um, in order to just, hey, all your context is right there, just dump everything in, and the agent will have the ability to read it, rather than some ad hoc, like you forget to put something in your regular chat instance. It's a no-brainer, because it picks up on stuff your prompts might not fully, especially when you're juggling quite a bit of terminal instances. Sometimes you miss a little detail or a little note or whatnot, but because you weren't thinking what it might need fully. But the models are so good now that it could actually assume that and go ahead, and because it has the reference, because you kept documentation clear, and everything was there. It helps you in that way, about having all that context. So yeah, costume design is going. It is chugging along, and just slowly but surely chipping away. It's the workflows are really good. Just experience to go through, even though I'm not fully in it. Uh, you know, it's the same. No matter if it's working with fabrics and printed materials, or if it's coding the website leomfilm.com, or my CRM on a personal note, or my personal dashboard, or the Wabbit app, wab.ai, or client work. No matter what it is, like, using the you got to use the tools, and context is everything, and that workflow. But it's the same principles, it's the same fundamentals, is what it comes down to, of being very articulate, thinking about these things, writing stuff down, taking notes before you fully speak on something, before you give prompts, utilizing something like a whisper flow, or any dictation tool, even just standard on your Mac, um, to do voice prompts, so that you can talk so much quicker than you can type, and type, actually talking it through out loud, your work, and what's going on, and asking questions, being inquisitive, getting that context that the agents can provide you, is, I mean, it doesn't, what I'm trying to say is, it doesn't matter anything from fabrics to very intricate code, uh, in terms of functionality. It's the same principle, and it's just a real pleasure, a real joy to live in a time where I can have, it's like brand new day, right? It's the EV. Also, I don't know what EV stands for Spider-Man, his virtual assistant. There was a his computer at home that he had comms with, this voice model that could do image recognition, and it was running some cool stuff, had access to some cool databases and cameras and stuff. Don't know what EV stands for. Drop that in the comments if you know that. But I mean, it's just a real joy to be able to, produce more than what I could do, without these tools. It's fun, it's enjoyable, and it's a pretty generalist approach. Like I said, it's a generalist skill set to have, and it can be applicable across the board. By proof of this concept and this shoot of LEOM, which is a screenplay. I'm a writer. I don't really, wouldn't say I'm a come from any type of film background, 3D experience. Everything has just been through the lens of making this one project come to life. And I love filmmaking. I love movies and comics and all that. But and just storytelling in general, really. I mean, I love reading. I love fantasy, sci-fi, all this. And I just, through a passion of something else, I've fallen into and productivity and tracking and being accountable. On the flip side, on a professional note, personal and professional note, just having one passion, or these two passions of accountability and self-improvement and storytelling, has landed me a year later, however, year and a half, whatever the point is now, in terms of me on the adoption curve, has landed me into a software position, and just absolutely ripping on some cool projects, and just continuing to get myself out of more and more manual tasks that are just so unnecessary. And you look back after a couple months of using the tools, and seeing what you've used them for, in terms of what those tasks would have been manually. And you just think back to times before, where you were doing that manual input, data entry, this, that, the other, reformatting, whatever the case is. And you just like, holy cow, like, I've been abstracted, I've a layer of abstraction out of that now. And just on to higher leverage tasks that involve more creativity, more agency, more planning, more diligence, staying organized. These new skills that are just continuing to be improved on naturally through a certain point on the adoption curve of the AI tools. So obviously, the image generation and video generation stuff, is video gen specifically, is new. And stick along on the trailer, on the channel, as we develop this trailer for make this proof of concept for my screenplay, for my story, and make this trailer for this awesome Future Vision XPRIZE competition that's inspiring filmmakers across the world to tell their story of an optimistic future. And going through these workflows is quite fun. And we're just gonna keep chipping away every day. And yeah, stick around to just tap in, and we're doing some fun stuff. So all the best. Talk soon. Good stuff.